Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret lives of words. We're talking about how one single word can mean totally different things and how our own language plays tricks on us pretty much every day.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a little linguistic mystery. We tend to think the words we use have one clear meaning, but sometimes a sentence is hiding something right there in plain sight.
Take a look at this sentence. The long drill is boring. Seems simple enough, right? But what if I told you it actually has two completely different interpretations? I mean, how is that even possible?
Well, on one hand, you could be talking about some mind-numbing, tedious exercise you have to get through. Ugh. But flip it around, and you could be describing a physical tool, a long drill bit that is literally boring a hole. Same exact words, but two completely different realities.
So this kind of confusion isn't just some random quirk of language. Nope. It's caused by two very specific linguistic phenomena. So let's meet our two main suspects behind all this wordplay: homonymy and polysemy. First up, we've got homonymy. The best way to think about these, they're like accidental twins. They are totally separate words with their own histories and their own meanings, but they just so happen to look and sound exactly alike. They're basically imposters.
Just think about the word sound. You've got the meaning of a noise that you can hear, and then you've got the meaning of being healthy or in good shape, like having a sound mind. There's absolutely zero connection between those two things. They're just two different words wearing the same disguise.
All right, now for our other suspect, polysemy, and this one's a whole different ballgame. This is where you have one single word that has kind of branched out over time, growing these new meanings that are all still connected back to some central idea. They're all part of the same family.
A perfect example is the word chip. I mean, a wood chip, a potato chip, and a computer chip are obviously very different things, but they're all related by that core concept of being a small piece that's been broken off from something bigger. You see that connection, right?
So this leads us to the crucial question. If they can look so much alike, how in the world are we supposed to tell the difference? How do we know if we're dealing with an accidental twin, a homonym, or a whole family of related meanings, a polyseme?
Well, one thing's for sure, you can't just go by the spelling. We already saw how that can lead you down a dead end with a word like sound. We need a better way. We need a reliable set of tools to really crack this case.
To solve this, we need a method. So here it is, the Linguistic Detective's Toolkit. It's got 3 key steps. First, we dig into a word's past, its etymology. Then we check for accomplices, shared synonyms. And finally, we hunt for a common thread that ties all the meanings together.
Okay, toolkit in hand, let's get down to business. It's time to put these tools to the test and see how they work on a couple of classic examples from the case files.
First up, let's check the history of the word bank. The bank where you keep your money? That was borrowed into English from French. But the bank of a river, totally different story. That has a Scandinavian origin. Boom, different origins. That's a slam dunk. They're homonyms. Now for our second tool, the synonym test. Let's take the word plain. It can mean clear, right? Or undecorated. So what's the connection? Well, think about it. Both of those ideas can be described as simple. That shared synonym is a massive clue that points us directly to polysemy.
But if you try that same trick with sound, it totally falls apart. Can you think of a single synonym that works for both a noise and the state of being healthy? Yeah, me neither. It just doesn't work. And that just confirms what we already suspected. Sound is a clear-cut case of homonymy.
And for our final clue, we search for that core idea. For plain, absolutely. You can say both meanings share this idea of being devoid of complexity. But for bank, a financial building and the site of a river, good luck finding a single concept that links those two. The connection just isn't there.
So let's look at the case summary. The evidence is all there. For bank, we've got different origins and no shared synonym. Verdict, homonymy. For plain, we've got the same origin and a shared synonym. Verdict, polysemy. Case closed.
So, we've cracked our cases. But what's the grand conclusion? Why does any of this actually matter? Well, it all leads us to this really important concept in language called ambiguity.
The official name for this is lexical ambiguity. It's really just the fancy term for what happens when a single word in a sentence can be understood in more than one way, and that's what can cause all the confusion.
And as we've just seen, both of our suspects are guilty. Homonymy creates ambiguity when you say you're waiting at the bank, And polysemy does it too, like when you say a robot is bright. Is it shiny or is it super smart? Both are totally possible. And get this, it's not just about single words. Sometimes the entire structure of a sentence creates confusion. For example, we watched the hunters with binoculars. Now wait a second, who has the binoculars, us or the hunters? That's a whole other mystery called structural ambiguity.
Look, knowing the difference between all these things isn't just for linguists. It's the key to writing clearly, to reading between the lines, and even to getting why some jokes are so clever. It really makes you appreciate just how complex and fascinating our language is.
So the real takeaway here is that our language is just filled with these hidden double agents and secret families of meaning. And that leaves me with one final thought for you to chew on. What other words do you use every single day that might be secretly leading a double life?